Good morning. This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net, and it is time for thoughts, queries, ideas, thinking about outrageous things sometimes, right, Steve?
That's right. That's right. Whatever comes to mind. Whatever
I
comes to
love
mind.
it. But today you're going to talk about a theory that we already have posted, and it's called music for the soul.
Yeah, this one is actually theory number 10. I wrote it a long time ago. Took me a while to post it because it took me a while to figure out how to send it to you in a format that you could post. But because just to let people know, I have a theory, but I also have an attachment. I also have things to go with it. So it was a little bit of a challenge. But
Sure.
I want to talk about music and my idea of music and emotions. So here it
Okay.
is, theory number 10, music for the soul.
Okay.
So my wife and I are driving to the next town over for some supplies that we can't get locally. And an upbeat, peppy song comes on the radio. My wife turns it up. The next song that we hear isn't so peppy, it's loud and angry. So naturally, I turn it up. The next few miles we cover are not filled with music, but instead a discussion about why I like songs that are angry and depressing. I explained to her that I'm very eclectic when it comes to music. I enjoy many different genres, but sometimes I want to hear music that reflects a particular mood I'm in: bitterness, resentment, futility, and yeah, happiness and love sometimes too. Her thought was that even if I'm feeling down, that I should want to listen to a happy song to cheer myself up. But I don't see it that way. It's actually cathartic to me to listen to loud, hostile music when I'm upset or agitated about something. Listening to those kind of songs somehow allows me to vent my emotions in a way that I couldn't otherwise. I'm able to channel my anger vicariously through the music. I don't know, maybe it's a guy thing. I've spoken to some male friends about this, and most of them get what I'm talking about. So I put together a series of emotion driven playlists. When I look back on my list, I realized that they were all pretty dark. So I threw in one or two about love just to keep from me sounding like a miserable SOB. It would be great someday to have CDs of these groups of songs that are labeled. I'd have one labeled hate, one labeled fear, one labeled misery, and be able to play them whenever I felt the need. Or I could just ask my daughter's kids to help me figure out how to use iHeartRadio.
I
Anyway,
love it.
here they are. Let me give you a little example. Some of these that I have put together. Uh, so these are songs that I've been listening to for years and years. Some of them are fairly new. Some of them are pretty old. Some of them you may not even have heard of because they're that old. But I have categories, as I said: pain, hate, apathy, bitterness, self-loathing. Some of the I have one called Monsters, and it's the songs Godzilla, Frankenstein, Werewolf in London, Sympathy for the Devil, Mac the Knife, Heathens, Dead Man's Party, Enter Sandman, things like that. I have Futility, songs like a Grenade, Just a Sucker for You, Self Esteem, You're Never There, With or Without You. It goes on and on and on. I have about a dozen categories. Depression, Black Hole Sun, Mad World, Alien, Slipping into Darkness. A lot of times when I'm driving, and I drive a lot, I listen to a lot of different music, and I'll just talk into my phone. I'll just say, hey, this song by this person, and the category, because that's what it reminds me of.
Right.
And I don't know. For me, it's if I can get these songs grouped in a category that all are about the same thing, right? I mean, back in the day, I remember in the '90s, people would complain that a lot of the '90s music was just whiny rock. All these guys were just upset about something and miserable, and that was a decade where a lot of that kind of music came out. And it isn't it the teenage angst of the '90s, all that kind of stuff, but it's a lot more than that. It's a lot deeper than that, and it's a lot more varied. The emotions are a lot more varied. It isn't just anger all the time. It's sometimes it's just frustration, or like I said, futility. You're just don't know where to go with something. So
And I understand it both ways. Um, that listening to this is your opportunity to, maybe instead of you screaming it out, you're letting somebody else do it for you, but you're feeling that, okay? And it's helping clear your mind. I can also understand, where your wife is coming from. If I'm feeling down, if I do something that creates this upbeat and happiness, my mood's going to follow. Uh, but it doesn't happen that way for all of us. And, it's interesting that I used to be one who would dwell on what was bothering me at the time. So, for instance, before we got online, I told you I was exhausted. If I was leaving my house, going to work, that's all I'd be thinking about, no matter what the music was. I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted. So by the time I got to work, I could barely get out of the car. But if you're playing music in the background, no matter what it is, it's going to help break up those thoughts that keep going on and on in our minds.
Right.
And, it's easy to be mad and angry. It's easy to feel sorry for ourselves, especially when we're alone. So I love this concept because sometimes we can't put words to our emotions.
Yeah, that's true. And you brought up a couple of good points. One about being tired. I don't know, people, a lot of people, some people may know, may not know. There's a difference between being tired and being exhausted. The word I use instead of exhausted is fatigued. Because I get tired from time to time, but when I'm fatigued, I can't keep my eyes open. I mean, the
Right.
day after, maybe several days in a row, I'm just fighting. I'm just that entrenched in being tired. And then it passes and I move on, but I understand completely what you're saying when you say you're exhausted. That isn't just I'm tired and I need a nap. I mean, your whole body can't get out of that. I mean, it's really difficult. It's really difficult. The other thing you said, it was right on the money. I don't, my wife it's much easier for her to tell me what she's feeling, tell me what's going on and let it out like that.
Right.
And for me, not so much. And I'm one of those guys when I get angry, I don't scream and yell and throw things. I kind of turn it inward, right? So I get quiet. And I think, like you said, the songs kind of say it for me, right? So I don't, have to. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what I mean. I'm sitting there going, and I'm thinking that I'm emoting, and I'm letting my feelings out. And it's really the song, but it makes me feel good that's exactly what's going on right now inside here.
And that song makes you realize that you're really not alone because somebody else is either singing about it or instrumentally putting it out there, but somebody else wrote this and they must have had those same feelings. So none of us want to feel like we're odd in our feelings, but most of us do feel that way. And the more people I talk to, they'll say things like, after a long day, I kick and, toss and turn in bed. I can't fall asleep. And then the next morning, I'm just miserable. Well, if you hear what your words were, okay, what happened yesterday to cause this?
Right.
And if you knew the cause before you went to bed, maybe you could have done something so you wouldn't have been kicking and screaming in bed. And then when you woke up this morning, maybe you could feel refreshed. But most of us don't want to think like that. We just want, this is how I feel now, and it's not going to get any better.
Right.
Music is great for our soul. And you said it right there, in the beginning, music for the soul.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. I agree. It's so much more than just background noise. For me anyway. And it's me. It's the person that wrote the song. It's the million people that bought the record. A lot of people feel that way, right? So there's some comfort in that for me anyway.
Very good. Well, again, this will be updated on our website today. But you said you have a new theory, and I love when you come up with new theories.
I do, and I haven't even sent this one to you yet. I just wrote it, and I will be sending it to you. I haven't been on a good rant in a while. Um, nothing has pissed me off in a while, but something happened the other day, and it kind of brought some things to the surface. So here it is. This one's called. Oh, wait a minute. Give me 1 second.
Sure, no problem.
Okay, this one's called "More Money Than You Can Ever Spend."
Okay.
I went to a gathering of friends a few weeks back. They were my wife's friends, actually, so I guess that makes them my friends by marriage. It was a pretty good crowd as gatherings go. Some people leaned to the left, some to the right, others nested comfortably on the fence. I was enjoying just listening to them go back and forth on the issues of the day, content to keep my ears open and my mouth shut. But then it happened. Somebody pushed one of my "you can't be serious" buttons, and I was off to the races. One guy was making a comment about athletes and the money they make and comparing them to the 3% who make about 100 times more than that. I was trying to understand his point when this woman chimes in and says that having that much money is obscene. I've heard that before. And I said, well, at what point does money become obscene? Is it 1 million? Is it 10 million? Is it a billion? I said, what is the obscene threshold where everything above that is obscene, but everything below that is not obscene? She smirked. Well, when you have more money than you can ever spend, that's obscene. That you can never spend in a lifetime. I said, but that's what every retiree plans for, to have enough money to retire before you pass away. And to make sure that you don't run out, you have a little bit extra. So that's really the definition of having more money than you can ever spend. She didn't think it was that funny, but I went on anyway. I said, besides, there's no such thing as having more money than you can ever spend. However much money you have, you can always spend it on something. If I had $1 billion, $1 billion, I could buy the Cincinnati Reds. If I had $5 billion, I could buy the Dallas Cowboys. If I had $100 billion, I could buy Ford Motor Company. There is no amount that you can have that you can't spend. At that point, the discussion was over. She was pissed and left. I can't really say that I won the debate or convinced her that she was mistaken. She had already decided that I was on the other side and that nothing I said mattered. And my wife and I disagree from time to time on things, but we're both able to at least acknowledge the other person's opinion. I don't think there's enough money in the world to get some people to see that.
Money is a great issue that can either bond us together in a good way or sever our ties. We always think that the guy across the street has more money than us, is better off than us. But we all use money differently. Okay. Some of us hoard it because we're afraid we'll never have it in the future. Others of us spend it because, hey, this is one life, why should I be denying myself? And then there are people in between. But when you talk about either the top 3% or the high paying athletes, some of them overspend their money. And we then later in life hear they've got nothing. Yeah. So you're right. We can always find a place to spend it. I always tease my husband, he keeps saying, if we could win one of those big lotteries. And my comment to him is, okay, and what would we do with it? Well, he does have a plan. Mm-hmm. Okay. Sure. He knows exactly what he'd do with it. And it doesn't mean that we are moving up to a fancier house. His idea is almost like yours, could I buy a baseball team? Could I, buy something that's going to help somebody else, but give me joy.
Right.
And,
Right.
you know, I keep telling him, keep dreaming, because one of these days you might hit it. Problem is, you got to buy a ticket.
Yeah, yeah, that'll help. That would help for sure. Um, yeah, it's really odd. I just lost the point I was trying to make. What you were just saying about God, I was there and now it's
Yeah.
gone. Anyway, yeah, some people seem to think that, I mean, I've been following sports my whole life, and it's true. Over the years, you read all the time about people that are in sports, make a lot of money, and all of a sudden they're broke, when they retire. And yeah, they're making a lot more now than they were back then, and it's a little easier to keep it invested, whatever. But um, yeah, you can if you get a lot of it, you can buy a bunch of cars, a bunch of houses. You have these expensive hobbies, and the money's gone. Um, so there's a lot of that uh, maturity, that financial maturity that you need once you have a lot of money.
Right.
Not that I would know, because, but I mean, uh, and I do the same thing your husband does. You fantasize all the time about all the things that you would have and buy and all that kind of stuff. But I just, it bothers me when people have such a negative view of people with a lot of money, and like just having it is terrible and is bad, and it's just, how can you live with yourself for being that successful, for having that much money? In an ideal world, they would want them to just, well, take 80% of it and give it to people that don't have it. And it just blows my mind. And most times I can keep my mouth shut, and this particular time I couldn't. But
But
I
don't you
go ahead.
think sharing your opinion with this woman, um, it's okay. You both can have diverse opinions. And you've said that you and your wife don't always, think alike. And my husband and I don't either. Um, but if you can't have that conversation, you may not see a different side to the issue. My mother-in-law was one of these people that she had to buy from Publishers Clearinghouse
Mm,
because maybe she would win. But then when she heard somebody won, $1 million or 5 million, it was only one winner. She would say, there should be multiple winners. And it was like, okay, but the contest is like to get, this huge buildup, and then one person wins it, and then you look and say, oh, that's their average, so I'll keep trying. But she kept saying, I want it split amongst other people. And she
right,
thought that if she ever won it, that's exactly what she was going to do.
right,
Well, my mother in law was already doing that with the little bit of money she had. Um, if she overheard a waitress in a restaurant saying that her kid needed new shoes, my mother in law would hand over, a $10 bill
right,
and
right,
say, here, use this towards their shoes. So she didn't have to be a millionaire to do that.
right.
And I love how this woman's thinking about it, that, probably she's been struggling with her money.
Yeah,
And that could be
yeah.
where her viewpoint comes
That
from.
could very well be. That could be very well be. And there's just some bitterness there about those that have it. And um, I don't care one way or the other, and I'm not pro, the 3%, like, I think they're the greatest people on the planet, and because they have money. Um, but it's okay that they do, I think. I think it's okay that they do. And yeah, it sucks that a lot of people don't, but they weren't just handed, most of them weren't just handed the money. They worked for it. They figured out a way to make it. Um, Ayn Rand wrote a book a long time ago, Atlas Shrugged, one of my favorite books, but it's about that same concept, that a handful of people do things better than anybody. One was an engineer, one was a pilot, one was different professions, and they were the absolute best in the world at it. And society, the better these people were at it, the less society thought they had to do. Well, this guy's going to do it for me. This guy's, he's so good at it. Let him do it, and I'll just, sit back and not know how to do it. But as if they had to pull the weight of the whole world, right? And the concept was Atlas shrugged. Well, what if Atlas is holding this weight, holding the weight of the world, and he shrugs, right, just to shake things up a little bit. Anyway, that was the concept. But yeah, just because you have money doesn't mean you're obligated to give it away to people that don't.
Exactly.
What your mother-in-law was talking about reminded me of the participation trophies.
Yep.
Okay, you've got, back in the day, you had a winner and a loser. You had one team that won and the rest of the league didn't. Okay, bummer. But now everybody gets a trophy, for participating, and it just diminishes it, the whole concept. And so,
and I'm glad you brought that up, because my youngest son we've talked about this before, loves baseball. And when he was younger, he was on numerous different baseball teams. But I remember one year, his team they were probably the hardest working team, but they just couldn't, win a game. They were always like down by 1 at the end. And it could have been, 30 runs, but now they lose by 1. But at the end of the season, their coach decided to have an awards assembly just for their team. And my son got a trophy, but he handed it back. And I asked him why. And he goes, Mom, half the time they wouldn't even let me go up to bat. And my son had a theory. When he played baseball, he wanted to play baseball like major league players, because that's what he knew. He didn't want to play it like, Little League is supposed to play it.
Right.
But he was smart enough to say, Mom, I didn't contribute enough. I don't want the trophy.
Right.
Because if I get the trophy, I'm going to think I was really good. And I wasn't. I was just a player. And my heart broke for him that day. But as he grew up and became a young man and now is on his own, I see that he gives the accolades to those. He may deserve it, but if he thinks somebody deserves it more than him, he's willing to give it to them. And then when they say, let's share it, if he thinks it's possible to share it, okay. And I think, that attitude, along whether it's money, gifts, or just praise, we can tell all those other kids on the team, you were good, but this person was excellent, so they get a trophy.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, he gets it. Your son gets it. He understands exactly. And at a young age, he understood.
Yep.
Like where he stood in the hierarchy, and he accepted it. Some people are just miserable that they can't be number one, and the trophy makes them feel better. I think that coach did almost the right thing. He almost had it. Okay, pulling the team aside separately was a great idea, because they worked so hard all year long, right? But I think he just needed to have a party, have a pizza party, do something just for the team as a whole, not give away individual things, but just say, you guys all work together all year long. You busted your ass. You did great. You almost did this. You almost did that. I want to celebrate you as a team, because you played as a team, and you worked hard. Even though we didn't win, we didn't get the trophy, you all did, work this hard, and I appreciate it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think that would have gone a lot farther than saying, okay, now I'm going to give you guys, since they didn't give you a trophy, I'm going to give you one,
All right.
Most improved, best batting stance,
And
best
maybe you do something like that if if there was a growth for each of the people on the team, okay, and you could specify that is a huge reward to a worker or a sports figure, okay, is being acknowledged that, this season you ran faster than last season, so that you deserve at least acknowledgement.
Right.
And now you know that, well, if I'm going to play again next year, what do I have to do? I got my speed up, but what are the things that I wasn't so good at? The coach doesn't have to tell you that because typically you know.
Right. Right.
And I find that with a lot of people at work, the last company I worked for, everything was about winning certificates and awards. And I was a worker bee,
Right.
and I met my goals, but I wasn't that person that, oh, I have to get one more so that I can top that person.
Right. Right. Right.
I wanted what I had to be solid. And at every awards ceremony, I would get a certificate, and it was called Good Try.
Oh God.
That to me was demeaning.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
my students didn't start school and within a month quit. My students started school, and I would probably 70% of them would graduate. And so when you're talking about people going back to college later in life, which were most of my students,
Mhm.
that 30% dropped out for many reasons. Either, they had to go back to work, or they had to work more hours, or they had a family. So getting that good try, it was like, you know what?
Yeah.
I know what I can do.
Yeah, it's kind of a slap in the face, Nice try, loser. It's
Yeah.
like you didn't win, so therefore you lost. I
Right.
hate that concept, right?
Yep.
And yeah, the coach could have singled out people, not giving them an award, but say, you know what, you sat the bench a lot. You didn't get in a lot of playing time, but I could tell when you got in there, you gave it your best. You tried. You're not making something up and saying, well, God, you're so really, this is what you did. This is what you did well, and this is what you need to work on. And I think that's great. The competitive nature is not in everybody. Not everybody has that gene, right? I mean, you
You're
play
right.
racquetball with somebody, you play ball with somebody, that you're out there for fun, whatever. That's how I am, right? I want a good game. I want to have fun. I don't want to get shellacked, and I don't want to cream the other guy, but I want good. But when you're playing somebody that it wants to win no matter what, and that winning is it. The fun of the game, whatever, the camaraderie. All right, but no, I need to win. And there's some people that like that and embrace it, but not everybody does. Not everybody does.
Well, to bring it full circle, my husband has gone back to work full time, and the company, and he works IT, so-called help desk, but anything IT is what he's doing. And the first week he was there, he wasn't sure it really was the right job for him, but he was determined to, give it a good try. Well, now he's happy being there. Some days he feels very fulfilled because he's been able to help quite a number of the clients. There are other days it's like, I was so busy doing other stuff, I didn't help people. But in the meantime, another company much closer to home contacted him, basically with the same type of job, except they told him what the goals were. And they were hiring 70 new people. And we sat and we talked about it. He was going to make a little bit more per year. He was going to have slightly better benefits, and he'd be closer to home by about 15 minutes. So he could have left later in the morning, been home earlier at night. And the more he talked about it, I said, you're going to be up against 69 other people like yourself. Do you think this company has enough work for 70 of you? He goes, no way. He said, I have more employees where I'm working now, and there's one of me and another manager who can step in if needed. And he fought over thinking, what does he want to do? And he finally said, you know what? I don't want to have to compete with 69 other people. I know I could do that other job, but every day I'm going to walk in the office wondering if they're going to let me go because I just missed it by that much. He said, where I'm working now, he said, I bust my butt every day. And they know it and they acknowledge it. He
Right.
said, so if I can come home exhausted but happy, that's what I'm going to do. And
Yeah.
so sometimes we have to look at all of that, put it on a scale, find the pros, find the cons. And if it equalizes each other, then you might have to flip a coin. But
Right.
typically, you're going to see how the scale goes up and down.
Right. And it's good he has you to bounce ideas off of,
Sure.
different ways of looking at things. But yeah, it's true. You can do the same exact job at two different companies. One of them, the company is going to say, great, you're doing a good job, keep up the good work. The other one's going to say, well, you did good, but this guy did it better. So you need to go a little bit more to be better than this guy, or else everybody's going to be better and you're not. I
Right.
mean, the same work, right? And that is that, they want those kind of people that are going to compete and want to get more and more and more. And if your husband's not one of those, then don't bother.
Right.
Don't bother. He made the right choice. That's for sure. Wow.
So for our listeners out there, one of the things you're probably hearing is that Steve comes up with a theory. And as we discuss it, we take it all around the world. And that is what I love about this podcast, because you are thought-provoking. You
Thank you.
create
Thank you.
a conversation, and we're hoping that our listeners are doing that same thing, that they're taking the theories that you have that are on our website and, how does that fit into my life? How can I make myself better? Because we all can improve. I've learned that year after year. There's one more thing I can do to improve, and not improve for other people, but for myself.
Right. And you're open to it, and some people are, some people aren't. So yeah, open to new ideas, open to improvement. You don't have to do or follow any particular advice or whatever. But you're open to it. You're open to it.
Absolutely.
Maybe this works for you, maybe it doesn't. So yeah, I think that's the whole idea that I'm trying to put across. You don't have to like it, you don't have to agree with it, listen to it. Maybe over the course of our discussion that we start with money, we end up with baseball. We always seem to come back to baseball somehow. I don't know.
Hey, we both love the sport.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, with my son not being in baseball at this point, sometimes I lose like what's really happening out there. And I was teasing him the other day. He says, but Mom, you know enough, but now you're learning about lacrosse and women's basketball. And he's right. I had no idea what lacrosse looked like until he went to work for a lacrosse team.
That's
And
funny.
now I love it. It's so exciting for me to watch.
Yeah.
And I never watched female basketball, women's basketball.
Mhm.
And as of Saturday afternoon, I will be watching the Dallas Wings and rooting for them.
There you go.
So I'm excited.
Yeah.
And I love the
that's great.
theories, so keep them coming.
Thank you very much.
And we'll see you next month.
Sounds good.
Have a good one now.
Thanks, you too. Bye.
Bye.